Okay, before the break, we started looking at CSS animations. We pretty much saw all of them except for, I want to talk a little bit about the timing function. What we saw, we're just straight for that time. That wasn't on our list of course objectives, but it was the last big thing I wanted to get through this semester because that makes a big difference in the page. But don't go overboard with the animations. Little animations, like things change size slowly, color adjustment when y'all have seen y'all have surfed the web, and you've seen web pages that have completely overdone animations and ones that have done them very, very nicely. So generally it's for small effects in our things. I guess I'm going to add another one in here, but so plan coming in like this, and CSS animations was really the last thing I wanted to look at. So might need to put in some other come into the odds and ends now, and I'll cover the animation here. Or we can do this. One of those odds and ends is related to, it shows up most often in animations. I started to do this right before the break, trying to find a good place to put it. But afterwards, it's just odds and ends, and sometimes I have a better idea of things to throw in. But that's pretty much what we're going to do the rest of the semester, fill out space. For next week, the expectation should be we'll just go up to what's normally break time. Might be a little bit longer, but it'll only be about an hour. Just filling odds and ends and things that I found useful and little tips and tricks to finish out the rest of our time, but still leave most of our time when I'm sitting by the email ready to answer questions in a split second, work on the projects. So we have this transform function, and there are several parts of transform. I guess I could pull it up. Transform CSS. Don't know how to search for this stuff on the Mozilla sites. Mozilla has some pretty good stuff. So we have lots of different translation. Some of y'all might recognize transform. Made a big deal out of that in game development classes, and got another game development class out of there's going to be an even bigger deal made out of it. And we'll actually talk about physics in the second level one, so there's even more to talk about. But or if anybody's had linear algebra, it's the transformations, linear transformations. So a few things we can do: rotating, scaling, skewing, and translating. Translating is moving back and forth. Scaling, that only shows up in our normal use, it's just stretching things in and out. Skewing is, you think about it as stretching things. So if we had like a smiley face and drew that out on sort of a math class sort of grid, where we have the X and Y coordinates, skewing, what it really does is changes our coordinate axes so that our plane becomes something like that. But the effect it has, and the one we think about, is that would make our smiley face do this. So we think about what it does to the picture. It's like stretching it a certain way, scaling it one way and not the other. But what it really does is it's changing the coordinate axis we're plotting on. Has a great impact on pictures. And rotation is kind of obvious, so that was the one I was going to look at here. So maybe this one we could rotate it a little as well. Transform, rotate, and then they go in as functions. So how much are we rotating? So 60 degrees. Then we get that rotation on the way in. And then we can just leave it that way. We could just put it as a normal property. Personally, I always do the rotation in an animation because I guess it just looks better to me if we see the thing rotating before it's just rotated on our page. Notice the rotation changed that border and stuff, so we might want to move that down. 90 pixels if we're going to do that. Oh, wait. Let me try negative 60 degrees. If you're wondering why I'm doing that, notice the greens at the top now and the blues at the bottom. There we go. That way the supposed to be the ground looking stuff is at the bottom and the sky looking stuff's at the top. Although it's pretty thin by the end, but whoops. Little things like that can make a big difference on our page. The other one we might want to do is notice that it does everything. It's pretty much straightforward. There's that first animation and the next one, everything's getting sort of even amounts of time. So that's where our animation timing function comes in. I'll just do it on this first one. Animation timing function. Oh, the default is linear. That's what it's doing. It's going like a straight line. It doesn't vary at all. The most boring type of timing, right? Just comes straight in. There's no variance to it. Couple of good pre-built ones. Ease in. It's slower at first and then speeds up. Ease out is the opposite. It's fast at first and then slows down as it gets near the end. That already moved to the second animation there, but the first one where it's showing up, you can see that comes in and rotates. Probably rotate that more. And a lot of back and forth. I'm going to make some changes because this is something we would see a lot. So go from positive 60 degrees to negative 60 degrees, but currently an ease out. Okay, there we go. Then we see all the animation and it sort of eases into the stuff on our page, which is fixing to be filled. The rest of that white space is going to be filled with random stuff. So not a good intro to our page per se, but hopefully the idea there makes sense. It adds a lot of flair to it. The one that might be a little bit trickier to work with is what's called Bezier curves, or cubic Bezier, to be precise, because that's the name of it, cubic Bezier curves. And then we have to pass in a bunch of numbers. And those are like points along the way. Let me open a graphic software and show a graphical cubic Bezier because it's kind of hard to see it before we look at the timing cubic Bezier. So if we go to draw lines, so this is some SVG graphic software. That's one of the that's going to be one of the first things we look at. So we draw a bunch of lines and eventually forms a shape. Straight lines, those are fairly straightforward. But the second option on lines here is a little bit different. So I choose the starting point, and then I'll pick a point up here, and then come back down. And you notice for that next point, it doesn't, it made that a smooth curve through those points. But then if I draw another point over here, it changes that curve that was already drawn. I'm way down here. And as we add more points, the curve that was already drawn changes from what it was. So the points impact each other, and then we get a smooth curve between them. So it's like that. So that's cubic Bezier graphical. Only it's cubic Bezier timing wise. Yeah, I don't have to say that. So we'll put in basically a few points in time. I guess I could have left that open earlier. Like animation CSS. That list at the top really should be links. That would make things a whole lot easier. Direction, we go. Yes, there's the basic ones. Shorthand, we can put it all in one line if you want to. I find that a little bit confusing because a lot of times we don't use alternate different ones and things like that. Wait, why do they not have cubic Bezier on here? There, he's in, he's out. Ease in, out goes slow at the beginning and end and fast in the middle. Oh, there it is, cubic Bezier. And notice it's just a bunch of in. They just have some numbers there. So those numbers add up to the total thing. Because you'll probably come back and see that. So let's put it a couple in. So like 3, 7, 9, 4. That's gonna be like that ease in and out function. 3, 7, 9, 4. And really, that means we need to do a little bit of math here. So 3, 7, 9, 4. 3 plus 7 plus 9 plus 4 is what? 10 plus 13, 23. So we gave it 23 steps basically. So each one of those becomes a fraction. So there where we say 3, that's actually going to be 3/23 of the weight of our time, which is 5 seconds, I think, right? 4 seconds. However much time we put on there. But first, we're going to do the first quarter of it. We're going to go 3/23 of the way through the animation. So the first second, we go 3/23 of the way through the animation. Then we go 7/23 of the way through the animation. Then 9/23 of the way. And then finish that up by going the last 4/23 of our way through. And each one of those steps through our animation, I guess you can think of it as the frames, has an equal amount of time. So if it's 4 seconds, then each one of those gets 1 second. I hope I said that correctly. It's kind of it's a little complicated to get used to, but it can have really nice effects. Let me switch the 9 and the 4 though. That way we see it go fast, or fast, slow, fast, slow. We're going through that much of our animation in 1 second. Slow, and then we'll go fast because we'll go through twice as much of our animation in the next second. And then our next second we'll go just a little bit through our animation. And the last second we'll go through a much larger fraction of our animation. So it starts out slow, then speeds up, and slows down, and then speeds up again. But whatever numbers you put in there, put any number you want, all numbers, add them all together, and then that becomes the bottom of the fraction. And then each fraction gets the same amount of time. But Most people go with the linear and stuff like that. I'll just leave that one in there. The ease in, ease out, move linear, those are a little bit more common. Wait, did I not save it that last time? Although we can see it better coming fast. And then changes differently. I guess I didn't save it the last time. But it gives us lots of different speeds. And that's one that if you're gonna do something with that, you usually end up doing a lot of test runs to hone in on the exact numbers you want. Because they'll be relative to other things going on in the page. Any questions about the animation stuff? Okay, let's look at something else that I thought we could add right at the last minute. So I'm gonna add a couple breaks. Whoops, not section tags. Couple breaks to spread things out. And then I'll add another paragraph. And in there, I'll put some words. So at the top, it's springtime. You can say, so NFL season is over. Some sentence, because I want to introduce a tag before we look at image maps. And I want to look at JavaScript, another thing with JavaScript. So nothing fancy about that paragraph. Notice how it moved out of the way nicely. That part, it went out of relative flow and came back in and stuff. Wow, that worked out. I just made that up. But we don't know what that means. What if somebody in, like, say, somewhere in one of the Balkan countries looks at our page? They might not know what NFL means, or they may have a completely different version of NFL. So there's this tag that can be really useful called, it's abbreviated, but it's abbreviation. It's been around since the beginning. So in 1989, they abbreviated everything. So the abbreviation tag, and then the abbreviation tag has an attribute title, or I'll spell out what that is the acronym for. Because we know that in America, but other people might not know that. We reload that. Things move very nicely on that page. And you'll notice it's underlined in kind of a funny way. You may have seen that on pages before and not known what that funny underlining was for, the dotted underline. When I hover over it, we get the pop-up box that spells it out. I wanted to show that before we got to something in a moment. I'm going to make that just a single paragraph because those words worked out like perfectly. I was going to put a button in there as well. That's why it was spread out at first. I'll just come down and put the button later. Break line, do another line break, another line break. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can need at least 6. So I'll do more than that. Paste, paste, paste. That should still show up, and then I'll put a button down here. Button. Yeah, that was out of the way. Because I did mention that one of the options is to do that in our scripting side. The client side script, we can access the CSS properties. That can be a really useful thing. One of our most common things to do with client side scripting is validate a form before we submit it. Make sure that all the fields have been input and people didn't put words and a phone number. things like that, make sure it's valid. So changing the style rules is a great way to show that. Okay? The client-side script's going to change it, so then we change the background of that input that's wrong to red, or maybe something that fits our site but still stands out a lot more. So on click, we need to call a function, and I'm going to put it here because this also helps to show something we didn't look at last time. I think last time we put our script tag up here. And when we do an embedded style sheet does need to go in the head because we need to load that before we load any of the stuff that actually shows on our page. But a script tag can go wherever. So I'm just going to stick it in the middle this time. And if you see remnants, or if you see reference material that says put it at the bottom, that's a remnant from when transfer speeds were 56 kilobits per second. But even back then, I still put script tags at the top because scripts can take a long time to load. But if the script doesn't run, then what's the point of having the rest of the stuff there? We need so I always prefer to load it first, but personal style thing, it can go anywhere. And anybody that says it needs to go at the bottom, that's from back when everything went across the phone line. Most of you were probably babies then, if even born. If you'd even been born, so. Some of us remember it. Let's see, so what can we do here? So new function. So our keyword function from JavaScript, and give it a word, change colors. That sounds like a good name for it. We don't really need any parameters, but we'll need a reference to one of our elements. So maybe this paragraph tag here. I'll give it an ID. ID equals NFL. NFL paragraph, and then we can say NFL is going to be look at the HTML document and get one of our elements based off the ID tag and look for NFL. Come back in NFL style. So to access the CSS stuff, we just .style and then the property names that we're used to from CSS, except in camel case instead of dash. So camel case has the words are just jammed together. The first letter is lowercase and each subsequent word starts with a capital letter. So background, well, we know dash color from background color from CSS. Instead of spreading it out, we switch it into camel case. About the name here. And if the first letter is capitalized, that's Pascal case. There's names for all of them. So any of the software development programs you want to learn those names. And then that gets assigned a string. Orange or brown. Make it the color of a football. So then when we click our button, we'll call that change colors function. All that stuff comes through. And when I click that, we get the brown text there. Probably shouldn't be that wide though. That's a little probably not brown, maybe tan be better color. I don't like the default brown color. Something about it just looks wrong.
It looks kind of.
Yeah, it's too much red in it. Orange actually looks more brown, or maybe not orange, but some of the color shades of orange, I think, more brown than brown. Because with the name colors, there's 30 or 40 oranges, and some of them make really nice browns. Probably set the width of that too, but, so it doesn't go all the way across. That's also something we can check. So if we put that in a condition, we don't need a semicolon, and we need two equal signs for equal to. I think it curly braces. So if it is orange, oh, that's why. If it is orange, we'll do something. Otherwise, we will make it orange. So if it's not orange, we'll make it orange. If it's already orange, make it white. I guess for the spring season, white and gray would have worked good. Make it look like clouds above our little thing there. But either way, we're just looking to change the colors. So when we click it, it wasn't orange, so it turns orange. Click it again, and it was orange, so it turns white. So I'm hoping you all played around with JavaScript a little bit, started doing things on time. I understand if not, though, it can be very hectic. But we can check things right there. That's why I saved it to a variable. If we were just changing it once, it probably would have been easier just to type that and do that one change. If I knew I was going to refer to it a couple times, I could. So you can also set up your animations that way if you want, but that's a little bit more tedious. Takes a lot more going on with it, but there's a few things in that example that could be useful. Let's see. Image maps were the next thing I had, but that's going to take a moment. So that might be a good one for Monday. What else did I have for odds and ends? That's on that. Image maps are where we take a picture and make those into buttons. We'd have to go find an image and then identify spots on the image. They can be useful. They're a little bit slow. Like you click on if there's a picture of a beach, you click on the sun, and that's a link to go to something. I found it useful for a couple game engines I made where game engine was designed to go across the web, run games across the web. But for input, I would just put a picture of a controller there, and it was good for touchscreens, except that it's not very fast. So not for speed critical games, for strategy games. Definitely not something where you would want to run around because it's not a very fast one. But it gives us buttons right in a picture. We'll look at that Monday because I want to talk about it a little. It was on the list, and I'm trying to fill time here. I'm just filling time while I try to think of what other odds and ends would fit in 10 minutes is what I was actually looking to cover. You know what I mean? But image maps were also misused at one point in the past too. So make a hypothetical example. So let's say the company logo happens to be a picture of a girl with red hair, ponytails. And there's some things that the investors really shouldn't know about. But it would be illegal to not tell them, or they should know because it would be illegal to not tell them. But the investors in the company will be very, very unhappy when they hear about those things. So the web developers could potentially make an alternate homepage that has all of that information that would be illegal to withhold from the stockholders. But the link to that page is to click on the ponytail from the little icon. And it's not quite as illegal to just not tell people where the link on the web page is. The information was definitely, the information definitely shows on the web page, but people have used that in various ways. At least I'll put it that way. There are lots of examples of doing that. Every time I've taught this class, I've been able to pull up a different example and try to describe a vague logo like that, and everybody seems to know which ones I'm talking about. But to hide links, hide information. This is it's an alternate homepage where the announcement is, but in order to get to it, you have to like click on a clown's nose, or click on a ponytail on the little girl in the logo and things like that. So people use them nefariously. That gave image maps a really bad name, but they can be useful. But it's going to take more than 5 minutes, and I wanted to wrap up in about 5 minutes. I did think of something else to do. Domains. Domain, that'll be a useful one to look at here. Has to do with links. So a couple things with links. Href equals I should have put my own phone number in here. I'm going to put a fake phone number, something that's obviously a fake phone number. It looks like a phone number, right? We can link to that. Probably wouldn't do anything from the desktop. If you have Skype turned on, I believe Microsoft Teams as well. When you click that, it will do something. Oh wait, I have Teams. I could do that. Put my own phone number in here and see if it calls me from Teams. 812. Well, we don't need to get into that too much, but we can link to a phone number. Just check the reference material for that. It can be useful, but it's on a computer you have to have Skype or Teams or something like that. On a phone, it's very useful because if you click it on your phone, it automatically calls it or automatically texts it. Your homework every week had phone numbers in there. That was in there. Do automatic emails and stuff. But another one on the odds and ends list. Now that we've covered everything useful, it's coming on time to register for stuff at school. Register for your next classes, right? Registration opens on March 20th. Please register sooner rather than later. That's for the summer courses. Which, by the way, I'm teaching the special topics this summer on Git and GitHub, version control, project management, and team management. That's actually the name of the book, the textbook I chose. It's going to be Git and GitHub, version control, project management, and team management. So hopefully a useful class, but that's going to be an official SDEV class coming up soon. Already the committee approved it, and those of us that were working on it got it all put together. And I just want to do a trial run before we go back to the committee in the fall in case there's any little edits that need done. It's a lot easier to figure those out when we're running class, but SDEV 193 this summer, if anybody's interested in taking that. But that's something that might happen. We might need to go to Ivy Tech. And there's lots of Ivy Tech sites, right? What are a couple of them? We have MyIvy, Ivy Learn. I'll just use the main ones, like ivytech.edu. If we wanted to connect here, there's a bunch of different things we can go to. So ivytech.edu, maybe /jobs, if we want to apply for a position at Ivy Tech. Or ivytech.edu/computers. Is it computer or computers? Yes, computers, if we wanted to get more information about School of IT. I'm on this page. They put my, I made it on here somewhere as like one of the success stories because I originally came to Ivy Tech as a student with no plan whatsoever. And yeah, I've moved up quite a bit since then. A plan formed, and I've now I teach here and do all kinds of paperwork and stuff like that. So I ended up on there as a success story programs. When Ivy Tech.edu/programs -A-Z, I think. Oh. Oh wait, that's the folder. Go to index. Oh. We can see there are a bunch of different ones. That was the main thing I wanted to look at. They just updated the site, so I don't know what all the some of the links might have changed. Oh, it's just programs. It used to be programs A to Z. So ivtech.job, /programs, lots of different things. Or maybe our site somehow promotes that. That means every link, every address we put in our links is going to have ivtech.edu on it. It'd be nice if we could get away with only typing that once and then just do the other part afterwards. And that's where base domains come in. I'll just put it on this page. So way up here in the head section, you can add another tag for base. Target equals underscore blank. Remember, underscore blank is going to open in a new tab. So we'll open in a new tab and hyperlink reference to https:// and just to say it, / is how we tell the computer protocol. I know there's a P in there that stands for protocol in HTTPS. That P stands for protocol, but that's for humans. And as you move through software development, periodically you're going to need to tell the computer which protocol to use. / is the instruction to tell the computer which protocol to use. So FTP : / file transfer. Something consistent that's going to show up for software developers. You want to keep that in mind. But again, we're just in little odds and ends here because CSS animations were the last thing I really wanted to look at. So the base, it's like the base link. The base is going to this domain. And then down here, we can set up some stuff. Maybe a couple more break tabs. And then we'll set up a paragraph with IV text stuff. Oh, maybe a list would look better. An ordered list with a label IV text stuff on it and list item, which this is a classroom, so I should do good form. Let's make that a span so we could get in there and style it if we wanted to. Or like we saw earlier today, the last thing that I really wanted to cover this semester was the CSS animations. You can animate it. We need to turn it into a tree to make it accessible so that we can have control over it. That's where the markup stuff is, but that's what we've been looking at this whole semester. So I'm gonna do a hyperlink and I'm gonna go to maybe the career search, ivtech.edu/jobs. But I already told it what all of the links are going to. So all of the links are going here, unless we go all the way back up and to the HTTPS and and it's clearly a full address. So it turns that and say jobs. I guess one way to say it is it turns ivtech.edu into a relative address, almost like we're in the same folder. Yes, very, very useful because a lot of times we'll connect to the same site over and over and over again, and it saves us a whole lot of typing. Careers. In that, what's another one? href equals programs. Learn. Of course. ivtech.edu. Because they just changed a bunch of these locations. Where is it available at? There's a bunch of them. Right? Everybody in Indiana is within 45 minutes. We have a really, really nice community college set up in system in Indiana. Locations. Put that there. So nothing too fancy there, just some links, but that is something that's going to happen a lot. Hopefully you're already forming pictures in your mind, right? When your site is going to refer to another domain over and over and over again, somehow connected, or maybe your favorite video game, or you want to connect back to Steam. You have a recommended list of things to check out on Steam. then your base URL is Steam. Then when your friends come over and check it out, this is something that could go directly into somebody's final project. When friends come over and check out your website, they'll see your recommendations. And then you don't have to put the full address of Steam every time. You just need to put the last game. And then that link will go right to that favorite game. We reload that. That animation in Words just worked out really, really well. That was just random, but it's like almost touching the period on that word. Happy little accidents are nice. So the link still works if we have the full link there, but we were able to treat it like relative addressing instead of absolute addressing to another domain entirely. And that's the sort of stuff that I have to talk about for the rest of the semester. Lots and lots of odds and ends that didn't make the cut for the stuff to learn in the course, along with some tips and tricks that I found to be very, very useful. But my recommendation, we got just under an hour left of class time. As always, I'm gonna be sitting here ready to answer questions that they come my way. My recommendation, if you're gonna work on CSS now, is to practice those animations, because those make a big difference in your page. Change colors and things like that. All the delays. Give that some practice, see what you can do. Next week, expect about the time that we normally take a break. I'll be the link, and we're just gonna fill it in with odds and ends. Image tag, image match, reversing text. That can be useful at times. Not really sure why. It's been there since the beginning, and I've never really used it extensively, but I guess it's good if we have a language that is written right to left instead of left to right. So we're used to English, we can write our stuff left to right and then run it through a translator and throw it in the reverse tag and throw it up the other way. Lots of different things and little tips that I've found over the years. Does anybody have any questions before we wrap up here? Okay, so there's an hour left, 55 minutes, I guess. Please use our time productively. I feel very confident that you all have something to do, right? Not this class and maybe one of the other classes. This time of the semester, it's very, very busy. That's why I like to front load the courses. That way we have time to work now. If you have any questions from now until 3:50, I'm going to be sitting around waiting for questions to come my way. And after that, it's office hours. So pretty much now to 5:30, I'm just gonna be sitting there waiting for questions to come my way. Enjoy that nice weather out there today. Might also be a great time to step away from the keyboard. It's 70 degrees outside. All right, I'll see you all next week. Have a good one.